What's up, guys? If you've been following my driver performance testing and you know that there was a performance drop from 21.6 with Unigine Heaven that has persisted to 6.2 and 7.1, I think I've gotten to the bottom of it, and it appears to be a bug or a possible unintentional behavior of the drivers that I was not aware of. This would probably be affecting other users too, because if you update from an older driver to the newer ones and you've got your game profile set, you might want to double check them. So basically, if you've manually tuned anything, there's a possibility. I can't confirm because I'd have to like go back to 21.5 and it would take a lot longer to fully test it, but I can demonstrate what happened. So basically, if you have a game profile, whatever your global graphics is set to when you launch that game, the game profile that's created under the gaming tab will have its own set of settings following your global profile. And that's normal. So if you have your global profile on multi-sampling, AMD optimized for tessellation, and this is for all the settings, by the way. If you have anti-lag on or off, anything like that, it will follow whatever you've set to in global under the global graphics tab. So you click gaming and go to global. So if you've got like anything set here, your new game will follow it. And basically what I believe's happened is I installed Witcher 3 after 21.6, and I had my Heaven profile set on multi-sampling from 21.5, and obviously I've been testing every single driver update. I haven't had any issues with my profiles resetting, and basically it's reset, and the weird functionality that happens is when a profile has not been tweaked manually, even if it's there, like for example, you can see Unigine Heaven. This is not a Unigine Heaven saved profile. It is global. All of these games that I have not manually tweaked are all following global graphics. And that is where the weird issue is, because you would believe if you manually, like for example, this is an example, if I go into Path of Exile, just pretend this is following global graphics as a scenario. If I manually tweak it to multi-sampling and it was on super sampling or adaptive multi-sampling, the new setting would save as a profile. Like it won't follow global anymore. It'll be its own profile. And the thing is, there's no way to actually tell. I cannot tell which one is a save profile and which one is a global profile. And I can create a global profile and demonstrate it. And basically, this is what happens. Global graphics might be set on adaptive for a new game that you're testing. Like you're about to install a game, you want it on adaptive because you've read that that's the best setting for that game, and you might want tessellation on ×4. And you newly install a game. If I remove Heaven and refresh, it'll detect that Heaven's installed, scan, right? Heaven will pop up again, and Heaven will be following whatever profile it's set to, adaptive multi-sampling ×4. And that, I believe, is what happened when 21.6 installed, because it erased my performance tuning profiles. It has manually reset my game profile to follow the global profile. And now if I go into global, it's no longer a Heaven-tuned setting. So now if I go to global and I set this to AMD optimized, which we just saw it was on override, and we go into Heaven specifically, because it's been refreshed, it is now AMD optimized. It is following its own, I mean, it's not following its own profile anymore. It's following global graphics, which it should not do. I don't believe that's intentional. And if I set this to super sampling, because I'm testing a game, under global graphics, a game I'm about to install, or whatever reason, my pre-existing profiles should not be changing on their own. And now it's changed to super sampling. And you might think, no, you're changing the global setting, so it's following the global setting because that's what global setting does. No, that's not how it's supposed to work. Every game is meant to have its own setting saved so that if you adjust global, it only affects newer titles that you've installed. So when you newly run a new game, that's the settings it should be taking from, is from global graphics. And as an example, if I go into Heaven, it's set on super sampling. If I set it to multi-sampling, now it is saved as its own profile. And I'll demonstrate that by going back into global graphics. If I now change it to adaptive multi-sampling and go back to Heaven, now Heaven is independent. It's staying on multi-sampling. So if you can kind of understand what happened, any fresh profile that is not manually tweaked, there's no indicator to tell you which one's which, any fresh game profile is going to follow global graphics until you manually tweak it. And I believe 21.6 reset those profiles, because I know I had it set on multi-sampling from previous drivers. So, I can't completely demonstrate it all because you can't actually record while updating drivers at the same time, and I'd have to create separate recordings on the older drivers and whatnot. But basically, that was the source of my performance issue. It does not seem to affect superposition to have adaptive multi-sampling enabled, but basically, I had adaptive multi-sampling set in global graphics for Witcher 3, and then somehow the Heaven profile was reset with the driver update and has followed global graphics and went to adaptive, even though it was set on multi-sampling prior. So now, yeah, now it's set on multi-sampling. That's how you rectify the issue. If you've got games that are changing to adaptive and you've used adaptive, or you've changed some setting in global and you've got other profiles for games that have a profile saved, you actually have to, even if it's on like at the time of changing it, even if it's on the setting you want it to be on, if you've never clicked it and like went back and forward, like you have to do something like this: super sampling back to adaptive or multi-sampling, and then go back into global graphics and see how it's on adaptive multi-sampling now. Now if I change it to super sampling, Shadow of the Tomb Raider will not follow into super sampling. It'll stay on multi-sampling. So yeah, that's the weird functionality. I think it's a bug. I think it's a bug that, like, if you just bought a Radeon card and you've got your global graphics on default of multi-sampling and you're just creating your profiles for the first time, you probably won't notice it. But for users that have come from older drivers that had a bunch of profiles saved with different settings, it's possible that they've all been reset from 21.6 onwards. And I'm just getting this out there because I've actually had other users tell me they had performance drop in Unigine Heaven from 21.5 to 21.6. And they could have actually just encountered the same thing where their profile was reset to follow different settings from global graphics. So yeah, I just wanted to explain that. Now I've rectified the issue, and this is the performance. I believe, like, this first testing was on 21.4.1. I believe this was on multi-sampling, the default, and nothing else was changed. The testings, everything was the same, like 2600 megahertz, the undervolted and same fan profiles and all that. 145, and then 21.7.1. This is where the drivers had the game profile had followed the global profile and went into adaptive multi-sampling instead of normal multi-sampling, and that killed performance on Heaven. But it was the same performance on Superposition and in Metro Exodus and that. So I guess those games just aren't affected by or they're already using some form of adaptive multi-sampling by default. So Heaven was greatly affected, and then I've retested now with multi-sampling forced again through the drivers, and it looks like we gained performance. So I still can't confirm this because I can't actually get it to score 145 anymore. I don't know what made it score 145. It was something to do with the 21.4 profiles that were set, like the graphical profile. But I'd have to like roll back drivers and do more thorough testing. But just for now, 21.6 onwards, as long as you double check your game profile settings, it's perfectly fine. And the performance is actually up, as far as I can tell. So yeah, previous benchmarks were always around 145 on older drivers, and the newer drivers with multi-sampling, I can't confirm if there's no higher performance setting other than multi-sampling. That's the main one that'll change performance. So whether it was on adaptive or multi, previous drivers were only scoring up to 145. So it looks like there was a performance gain, or they've changed something else. But basically, now I'm getting 180, and I retested it more than once. I tried it with tessellation on AMD mode, and I also tried it with tessellation ×2, which is the highest performance possible setting for tessellation, short of turning it off. And it actually was within 1 FPS. It was actually a little bit lower than AMD optimized. So yeah, double check your game profile if you use them from 21.6 onwards, just to make sure that your settings aren't reset. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I just wanted to clarify that because I know there's a few people, and I did have people say to me, my Heaven performance dropped, and so maybe that's the same thing. It's like reset it to the global profile, and you have to manually tweak it to get your settings to save again. So yeah, this is the performance of Heaven in 21.7.1. Ultra Extreme 1080p 8x AA, and I've changed nothing else. I've only been looking in these driver settings because I was actually checking a game I just added, and I was wondering, hey, wait a second, why is it following global profile when I've I thought it was on multi-sampling when the profile was made. And yeah. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next driver update.